Welcome in everybody. Today is day 1 of Genesis War. It'll be a week-long thing, so let's get into it. The first thing it's going to do is ask you to join a force. At this point I just hit auto. The only difference in the teams is who's going to be on them, and it could eventually determine how much points potential that you have to get. But honestly, more times than not, it's not going to change much at all. I've been autoing my team for the past couple cycles and it's been perfectly fine. The best thing you can do is just make sure that you're not below rank 2000. So just get to rank 2000, that way you'll get a couple extra rewards at the end. And also you're representing your guild here, so do good for your guild and you'll get extra rewards for that too. So how do you get Genesis War tickets to participate? Well, hopefully you were doing the special challenges the week prior to this. That's how you get these tickets to perform the runs at all. There's 3 main modes: main battle, which you'll come in and fight the boss regularly, manually. There's SP battle, which has a couple different modes. You can play with your guild or friends. You only get 10 charges of these throughout the event, so make sure that everybody's prepared when you're going to launch these. Then you have your quick plays. Once you set your score, then you'll be able to consume 100 tickets per day as a quick play. So for now, let's team build together and then I'll go through the Stele of Memories. So unfortunately, you do not get any rankings here, no gold crowns to go off of, so you'll have to team build yourself. Hey, but that's the fun part, right? So you come up here and you can tell that the tips are basically just telling you to use any heroes with damage up to everything at the bosses and to use elemental attacks, which just means not neutral damage. Clicking through to the boss herself, we can see all of her stats. She's a ranged airborne female elf of the light element, and she's slightly more resistant to light than everything else, although anything over the second bracket here is a strength. So she does have elemental resistance to everything, just a little bit extra to light. Now her action skill consists of all these things that will go just to her. There's no adds in Genesis War. So if you are bringing magical damage, she will deal even more damage to you back. Her action skill damage also shreds your own light element resist before dealing damage, and it is unmitigatable. Her auto skill damage, however, will deal increased damage to dwarves, but it does not ignore counterattacks. So there's a good potential to be dealing a lot of damage on your counterattacks in this one. She will be shortening your own beneficial effects, which Grace cannot prevent, so your buffs will be shortened on the 3 targets with lowest light res. And you do not have to worry about magic defense at all, as she only deals physical damage. All Genesis War bosses get these passive skills called Progenitor's Conquest and Memories. Conquest basically just increases the damage from their skills every time that their level increases, and their level will increase as you deal damage to them throughout the fight. And then by the end of it, damage gets pretty severe. Progenitor's Memories is just extra constant buffs that get added to her as you level her up, aka deal damage to her. So from very early on in the fight, you are not able to apply stat debuffs to her. These early levels will go pretty quickly as you deal damage, so these effects kick in way faster than you think. Alright, so moving on, let's team build. If you do not have progenitors already unlocked and available to use as party leads, then team building is going to be a little bit different for you. If you have them, you should try to use them to boost your all stats. I know in general, I'll be able to use Asgard if I bring 3 light and then 2 matching of another element, and I'll be able to use Yggdrasil if I bring 3 earth and 2 matching of another element. I think that my Jew Bride Son is too good not to bring, which means I'll probably be trying to partner her with 1 other water unit and then either 3 light or 3 earth. Jew Bride Son is the best female amp that I have on my account. All ally 50% is stronger than PDL's 30% or any other female amp that I have. So if I can manage to fit her in with another strong water candidate, that would be beneficial, because otherwise I'm going to be going earth primary with PDL and Gunlod. Alright, so jumping ahead here a little bit, I have a couple choices to make. My real issue is that to provide a good ranged row amp, I could either be bringing a Mariana to partner with Jew Bride Son. That way I can still use Yggdrasil as the party leader. But what I would ideally wish I could do was bring Yggdrasil to cover the humans range row amp. Although it is only 25% damage to other humans, Jew Bride Son and Gunlod would not get the ranged row amp, and I couldn't use Yggdrasil as the party leader with her in the party. So I do have options to go 3 light. I would have an option to go 3 light units so I could use Asgard, as in Lofen here has a very strong elf amp, 30% to all other allies excluding self and 50% to herself. So I'm kind of torn at the moment, because if I went light, I have some very strong light candidates. The Eye Lifts Color Master would help me survive some damage as well. Venus won't be doing much damage herself, and she'd only be providing 30%. And I'll cut that. Jew Bride Son, I already got it. Jew Bride Son here would already have the female amp covered, so Venus's female amp wouldn't even be necessary here. And then I could fill in the final unit with either my Jubilant Selene or like a Pilo Loki to get 1 Asgard buff. This probably would be decent, but I'm kind of leaning towards going Earth and then bringing Mariana instead of a potential P-Loki Gunlod combo. This would be specific to me since I have her Corrode, which when Gunlod and P-Loki are together, I'd be interested to see if Arcana chain effects work even if their stat debuffs are nullified. I do believe it still works. We'll get to see if in a test run if we see this effect marker on her. But back to the basics, we gotta cover up a damage up to light element enemies, which PDL would cover. Jude Brideson also has a very strong 50% damage up on her action skill. PDL's coverage comes from her Ascension procs, and if you've even pulled a single copy, you can use this on PDL. This is another damage up to light element enemies whenever she deals 50k earth damage on her action skill. But in order to justify this team, I would still need an elf amp, which is where Beryl comes in. Could check Antiquarius's. She has a flat 30% up to elves, which is also what Beryl has, and Jude Brideson's water element damage up is 50%, so I've already got that covered with something better. The good thing is, as far as race and altitude, you're not prevented from bringing anything, except you probably don't want to bring a dwarf, because her auto skill will probably just deal way too much damage with the extra boost on top of all the other progenitor effects that she gets while leveling up. So in that case, if I'm not bringing Yggdrasil on the team so I can use her party leader effects, my only option to cover range row amp here would be a Mariana. So this team I believe is one of my 2 potentially strongest teams against this boss. I could also run 3 light with a combo of Lofen and Ylith and either Phoenix or another unit. So I could use Asgard as party leader. Alright, so back at it. Point being, if you have progenitors, try to use them to get your all stats buffs. They really are insanely strong, even if you can only get one of them. Could I potentially drop Gunlod to bring a ranged earth unit? Maybe. Would it be better? Maybe. Gunlod does a lot of damage herself, even without comboing her with P-Loki for Corrode. I think I'm fine with trying this team, otherwise I'm using 3 light, 2 water to pretty much do the same thing with Asgard. Now when it comes to the gearing, I'm just going to try to use light damage as little as possible. Since Beryl gives everyone a 30% amp to earth damage, I don't need to cover it on an accessory. Jude Brideson does the same with water, up to 50%. So my element damages are already covered, and I have 2 sources of damage up to light enemies on action skills with PDL's Ascension and Jude Brideson's action skill. Once again, there's not any ranking for gear, so you're on your own once again. You can, for physical, you can just have a different sort to make it easier to see. I'm going to be focusing on these 2 damage types. And just keep in mind that even though the boss is airborne, it would not be the end of the world to use something like Flowery Wand, even though the grounded amp is wasted. 30% skill gauge is nothing to scoff at on 1 equipment, and 2 buffs that are very strong will help out anyway. Otherwise, you ideally want to get stuff that usually increases your skill gauge generation and hits multiple times. In the case of the longsword though, it's really good that it doesn't matter that it doesn't hit twice, because the 1 hit is 500% damage, which is pretty strong in the meta now. Gear didn't used to be this strong, but now you have crazy stuff like this. This item's definitely coming. If you have any Nature's Poetry Blade, that's good because you get the extra Earth Element Resist Shred. And Element Resist Shreds are different than stat debuffs, so these will apply even though the boss will have stat debuff nullify the whole time after level 5. I'm also going to use this Heroic Wanderer gear as well, because Solidarity is an extra effect that will help all stats, and 2 allies getting 20% skill gauge is good, even though it's still only a single hit. Has a lot of other extra effects on it. There is 1 damage boosting component that I do not have on all allies, and it's Mariana's Airborne Amp. It only gives to 1 in 5 slots. Her other passives for grounded, so I need to cover slots 2, 3, and 4 for the best airborne that I can. In which case, I'll go ahead and do that when it's fresh on my mind. And we're just looking for 30% here, so this one will cover herself and Beryl, who's in slot 4. Then we just need an airborne amp on PDL, and everybody has at least 30% airborne amp. Ooh, this is a really nice option if you have them and do not have elf amp covered otherwise. This would be a good way to cover it on the Eldritch Ring, and you get a little bit of extra female amp if you don't already have a constant that's stronger than that. Just pointing out, the Snake God Ring is always good when you can bring it on a melee human. There's almost no reason not to. This opener attack will stack with constants. So for the first 5 turns, having that extra 30% attack is spicy. As I went over in my Fubuki Gildra video, any other openers will stack with constants, so Lucia's hair ornament is a very good female amp opener, which will stack with any constants you have. We're going to give her an earth element damage opener, and then finally we need a 30% airborne coverage. Life of the Phoenix only gives 25. I know we've got a 30% somewhere around here, yada yada yada. Serena's black rank plate is 25%. I think the best option we've got is Star of Temptation, which will give 30% to herself. So probably go with that option. Well, I even just fooled myself. Always keep in mind what gear set you're building it on. I just was lackadaisically doing this on general. If you do not have a Genesis War preset, I highly recommend making one just so you know everything's already on there. Now I've got to redo what I did real quick, BRB. I want to shout out Wisdom Tight real quick because this item didn't used to be like all that great, but for Acer Theory and Jotun, its openers are pretty dang good, especially since you'll be stacking that with any constants. If you have one of these, I highly recommend using it more often than you think because the flat attack and attack openers are huge for the damage formula. So something you can do in tandem with the Snake God ring if they're not a melee human is bring Kvasir's Blood Chalice, which will do the same thing but just to one target, and these openers will stack up. Constants won't stack, but openers will. So I think Gunlod's probably going to end up being the one with the highest attack, although Barrel might actually take it, we'll have to check. And I'll be using Umbral Destroyer set on this as they're the 12% light killer potential. I'll be using some asteroid earrings here to shred the defenses on that opener because they will apply until they hit level 5 where she gets permanent stat debuff nullified. So at least for those first couple seconds, I'll be able to hit her just a little bit harder. Also, if you have any Otoshidama from Lif, this is a very strong airborne amp opener. Very rare. You almost never see this on an accessory. I think this is one of the few in the game that actually have this. So definitely use these here. If you're able to get a boon off in that first turn as well, you can keep this buff applied. I really wish I had done enough tier 2 Heroic Wanderer to get the Earth Element Resist Shred accessory, but I don't have it yet. I've only got the light and dark ones, being these two. But we're still working on that. Just taking some extra time to look through and see if there's any earth element shreds that I'm missing. It's always good to go through and just check what other gears that you have lying around. You might have some hidden gems that you're not even realizing that you're not using. But it would seem that I do not, so I'm just gonna go with Akashic Machina to give that nice all stats opener and finish it off with just a high attack item with skill gauge on it. And Marinara, her job is to just not die. Luckily we have her gear at a 5-star, which is completely bonkers. All ally resolute on an equipment for 2 turns. Are you kidding me? Let's see. Hevring's gear is amazing. It's a quad hit ignore shield barrier with really good buffs. The fashion forward Chihaya gear Sparkling Summer Bunny ensemble is pretty bonkers too. Gives you nice buffs to your damage and then a nice double hit that has increased damage to airborne. As her 4th equipment, I could go for something like Sealed Demon Skull, which would shred that water resist a little bit to help Jude Brideson's damage. But I could also go with something like a Tarf Star, which would be helpful to my own survival and still gives me that water element resist down with a double hit, so probably go Tarf Star. As for accessories on her, we're obviously running our Galaxia. If you have this, it's awesome. Yes, the constant won't do anything for her as she's already giving herself 40% damage to airborne, but these opener shreds, like I said, will apply at the very beginning before the boss gives herself stat debuff nullify. The Miracle Bouquet is an interesting accessory for Acer Elftharian that amps all types of damage upon opener, and for 10 turns is pretty nice. It's a very easily boonable. I'm not sure if we'll be bringing it on her as she's only purple. She's not really going to be dealing that much damage. I'll be slapping on the new Dewy Blossom Skeppies S5 gear that just came out because this thing's bonkers. We could try for a cheeky water wound opener, and maybe that would help a little bit with Jude Bridesons, if at all possible. That may or may not go off. She might resist it. We could try with the Winter Bouquet to also give her a water wound opener. Maybe trying with 2 different items would make one successful more often. Ooh, Azure Apple Hairpin would be another good option for any Acer Tharian to amp that water damage opener, but like I said, Mariana's probably not going to be doing a lot of damage. I'll just let her have my other Otoshidama from Lif and call it a day. I wish they had the gear status preview for every content. That would make doing stuff like this a lot easier, but let's take a snapshot of the gear before we run in here. Alright, I'll put up the picture right here. I'll break it down for you right now. Jude Brideson gives 50% female amp, 50% water damage up, and 50% damage up to light enemies on an action skill. PDL gives Earth Element Resist Shred 20% on opener for 10 turns. Beryl gives 30% damage up to elves and 30% Earth damage up. Marinara gives 30% range row amp to everyone else and 40% to herself, and she gives 40% airborne amp to the 1st and 5th slots, so Gunlod and herself, and I cover 30% airborne to the slots 2, 3, and 4 with a Jovian earrings on Jude Brideson and a Star of Temptation on PDL, and this will still allow me to have one application of Yggdrasil's party leader buff. So let's see how it does. Once you're in the battle, you really just need to go as crazy as possible. You can animation skill cancel the boss by performing a limit burst at the correct time. It's a good way to stop incoming damage when she tries to action skill you. So I'm saving my limit burst for the first one. There we go. Animation canceling her action skill by performing this action over top of it, so it rules out her being able to do it at all. But the damage will still get more severe as she's over level 100. Yep, I probably needed to bulk her up a little bit more. Yeah, this boss hits really hard. I'm not going to be able to do very much more with this team, I believe. Gunlod will be here forever, so probably just skip this until the end when she's able to one-shot her. Honestly, I really wish I could get a range row amp without bringing a magic unit, because I'm really close to not proccing her agitation magical at all. Here's an immortality from Gunlod. If I can hit 400, so close to 400 million. But not bad for a first draft. Honestly, I feel like my light team would do more damage even though she's more resistant to it. Light shred is so crazy in the meta right now, and that would allow me to bring Ilif, which I would just be more survivable with her. There's definitely potential here because I feel like Marinara is definitely the weakest thing. She's literally only there for the range row amp and the extra airborne that I don't need to cover on slots 1 and 5. It's really tough because I would really prefer my second water to be parallel Loki so I could corrode with Gunlod. I feel like that would be a lot more efficient, but losing range row amp at this point would be really bad. I would need to drop probably PDL to be honest, because Beryl bringing the elf amp is more important. Yeah, I'd lose the earth shred, but if I dropped PDL and Marinara, I could get Yggdrasil up in here to cover range row 25 to Beryl, but then if I added P-Loki, I'd only be bringing 2 humans, and I would still be missing out on range row amp to the 3 non-humans. So honestly, this elf chick is pretty tough. I kind of want to try building a light team, but I'm going to do that in my off time. 400 mil is pretty good for a first run, so I'm going to use this as my starting standard and run my quicks based off this number. So now that I have that score calculated, I can run my 100 quicks based on that damage and get a very nice chunk of the currency for the Stele of Memories on the first day. And now we can get into this. So if you aren't aware, this is where you're going to be building your Aeon Right weapons. These will give you the featured materials needed to level up all the specific Aeon Right weapons, the war memory pipes being one of the most important. That will isolate you from being able to level up the weapon at all. So in my case, I don't need to do Acer and Human anymore since they're already level 10. You are only able to choose one race every Genesis War event, so you do need to pick wisely. You do need to strategize if you're missing resources for something that you're trying to go for. And what I've done already is gone through and checked how many war memory pipes that I have. I've done one where I got Celestial as my reward. That's why I have 7,000 of it. Same thing with the Jotunes. I did one Genesis War getting Jotun rewards. So this time I think I'm going to go with Therian. because I need Therian and Elf as well, but I'm going to prioritize Therian this time. Once you pick, you got to make sure you got the right one. Sigil, you may not know what that means, but you may not have memorized their little pictures here, but if you ever need to know, just click over to the war pipe and you'll see the race listed out in text. I wish they just had the text of the race like listed right here in this blank space, but I don't know why they don't. Anyway, I'm picking Therian this time. As for you, you need to push enough war pipes for whatever progenitor weapon that you're going for. And there's a nice little shortcut button to go to your Aeon Right weapons down here in the corner. So as you can see, the only thing holding me back from leveling up my Therian weapon more is the war pipes and then more arena coins. But as you start to get these rewards, they will cost more for a certain set of boxes that you're on, but you'll get a bunch of other stuff. You'll get all the Mind Demon fossils that you'd otherwise having to be farmed from the regular 9 or 10 star CBs. You get the memory crystal balls, which is going to slow you down as well. These are used for all of them. And, you know, a couple little other basic currencies come trickling in. As you fill one out, you get to do the next one, and they go by brackets. So every 5, they'll start to cost more, but then you'll get a little more, and you'll get different resources along the way. So by the last ones, you're getting the infernal and heinous level difficulty drops, which you use for like the levels 7 through 10 of the Aeon White weapon. But yeah, that's Genesis War. So try it out, see how you do. I would say a good break point to try to hit is about 100 million damage. If you can do that, then you can be pretty happy with your quicks. But utilize every little strategy that I've taught you here and get yourself a nice starting number before you run your quicks. You see, there's some crazy players in this game. Like, I will never be able to breach the top damages here, but my 400 mil ranks me at 145 on day 1. This is very competitive, and you'll just have to learn where your damage is going to fall. As long as you're using all the best of your abilities to team build and strategize and use your best emblems and artifacts and equipments that you can, you're doing the best that you can. You'll be earning a lot of rewards from this. Just be sure to be doing it daily. If you miss a day, that's a big deal. You missed your chance to do those 100 quicks. But that'll be all for me today, everybody. This will be Genesis War only. So until next time, everybody, foots out. Cheers.